Thank you guys for tuning in with me today. In this video, there's a couple different things that I'm going to go over. This was the first night of our meetup game at Georgetown Poker Club. So if you guys don't know already, Georgetown Poker Club does have a round by round every Friday, PLO and Big O. It's the game that we started at our meetup game, just like what we did in Hustler when we were doing meetup games that they're running every single week now. Georgetown Poker Club is running that every single Friday. It's one of the few Big O games that you can find in the Austin, Round Rock, Georgetown area. So definitely check them out if you are interested in some Big O PLO action round by round. Like I said, it's every Friday. It's on Poker Atlas. Get a hold of the club to do that. So a couple of big announcements. First of all, we have some meetup games that are coming up in Chicago again. April 1st, we are going to be at the Chicago Charity Group, both Wayne, Donkfish, and myself. So we're pretty excited about that. We're going to be there both April 1st and April 2nd. We're going to be there all day Saturday, all day Sunday. We're going to do round by round, both PLO and Big O. Plus, we're probably going to have the small blind jackpot game, which is something we've been instituting. $10 goes on the button. The only person who can win it is the small blind. No one wins it. It starts accumulating and going around. We've had that over $250, I think, at each of our meetup games. So it does end up affecting the action, which is really good. So also, if you guys are interested in ordering merchandise, I do have When in Doubt, Potted Out shirt that I'm wearing. So now that I'm back from Texas and I got here, there's also the 10 Commandments of Pot Limit Omaha, the merchandise, all that stuff is going to be down below. And as you guys know, I am going to be on Dancing with the Stars. So I'm going to attach a QR code if you guys want to vote for me. Every vote's $10. 100% of it is donated to home health hospice care. So go ahead, if you guys are in the giving mood, go ahead and do that. Again, it's for a good cause. May 24th and May 25th, I'm going to end up dancing. The theme this year was superheroes and villains. So we picked everything random. So I'm going to be, yours truly is going to be doing Black Panther in a contemporary ballet style. So it's might be just a complete shit show. Who knows? Maybe I'm good at dancing. Who knows? It's something I'm definitely going to post on down the road. But thank you guys for tuning in. Join us for our meetup game in Chicago. As always, everybody, I hope you guys like the video. If you haven't already, go ahead and hit the like and subscribe. It definitely helps. And don't be afraid or hesitant to share the video. One of the common feedbacks I get from PLO players is, I really like your content, but I really don't want my opponents to know about your content because you go in depth and you cover a lot of different topics. I've even had some people say, you're the reason why Big O is a little bit tougher, Professor. Well, maybe that's the case, maybe not. I know even though I give advice, even sometimes when I give advice to my students, sometimes they don't listen. That's just part of life, part of learning experiences. But I appreciate everybody. Thank you very much for watching the video. Enjoy, and as always, everybody, play smart and run like a god. Alrighty, let's take a look at the very first hand here. We are at the Georgetown Poker Club meetup game. All of these hands in this video are going to be all Big O. And let me tell you something, Georgetown Poker Club is doing a round by round every Friday night now of PLO and Big O. So in this particular hand, we have ace 3, king 4, 9. Now, the reason why I paused it, I already raised it to $35. We're in the cutoff. This is a really strong hand. We're double suited. We have 2 to the wheel, or 2 to the Broadway, and 3 to the wheel. Now, the reason why I paused it is because when I made it 35, the button called, and it got back to the big blind, and the big blind decided $35 was not quite enough. So the big blind ended up re-raising it up to $140. Now, when we look at this re-raise for $140, we actually have 2 options here. We do have a contender for a 4-better. The only thing I don't like about this hand being a 4-better is the dangling 9. I promise you, if that 9 was a 10, a jack, a queen, maybe even a deuce or a 5, this is something we would definitely 4-bet. But at this particular time, keep in mind, looking down at 5 cards is a little bit more challenging than 4. I recheck my hand to make sure, yes, I do have a dangling 9. So I decide to go ahead and call, and of course the button calls. So we're actually going 4 ways to the flop for $140 pre-flop. So yeah, we have some seriously good action here at Georgetown Poker Club in Georgetown, Texas. Now here comes the flop. Oh my God, deuce 5 jack with spades. We actually flopped the absolute most perfect flop we could have hoped for. Now there are plenty of situations in Big O where I say, hey, apply max pressure and go ahead and pot it out. But literally when you look at this type of hand here, ace 3, 4, we have a bottom wheel nut, no bust low draw. We have nut flush draw. This is actually a hand you can value bet. So we value bet for $260. We're praying somebody has a set of jacks or is going to play back at us, or maybe somebody even has ace, ace 3. Unfortunately, all of our opponents fold, but fortunately for us, we pick up a decent sized pot here. Now let's take a look at this next hand here. We have ace, 4, 4, 5, queen. We do have an ace of clubs, and we do have 3 hearts in our hand. Now, even though we're in the big blind, we decided to elect to raise it to $40. Now, there's a couple of reasons for doing this. Even though we don't have the 3-3 hand, which you only are going to have 2 or 3 times throughout the entire night, but we do have some wheel blockers with the pocket 4s, so we're not even worried if a 4 comes up to quote-unquote counterfeit or low, we end up having a set. And besides that, I don't mind juicing up the pot. We're pretty reasonably stacked, deep stacked here. I believe we're $3,000 deep. There's, $20,000, $30,000 on the table. So there's enough here to build a pot and juice it a little bit. Now with our $40 raise, we end up getting a few callers. I believe there's, 4-way action, and we're going to go to see a flop. Now the flop comes out 6, 7, 8 with 2 hearts. Now there's a few reasons why I picked this video to go over. One, you can see, yeah, we flopped a straight draw. No, it's not the nut straight draw. Obviously 9, 10 is the nut straight draw, but we do also have a heart draw. So on a hand like this, I'm going to bet out $80. This symbolizes a few things. First of all, since I was the original raiser pre-flop, I could have ace-deuce here quite easily, as well as some kind of combo draw. So like ace-deuce with hearts, or ace-deuce with like 2 pair, something to that effect. I could also have ace-ace-deuce, or I could just be randomly having a hand like I have right here. Now what happens is it gets back to somebody who's on the shorter stack. They end up having $390, and you can see the dealer count out there. Now this is my thought process here, because I do have a player that's behind me who called the $80. I can either elect to just call the $390, pulling my opponent in, or I can re-raise. This is literally the 2 decisions that I have. Now when you're debating on this, when you factor in, should I allow my opponent to draw? Should I pull him into the pot? When you look at their different stack sizes, you have to make them pay for any type of draws. Now, obviously, I don't mind somebody drawing to hearts because I'm blocking 3 hearts. So you can make the argument that it's best if I just call here. But on the flip side, if I am losing to like a 9-10, then I'm better off just jamming and getting rid of the other heart draw, because the other heart draw might not be able to beat a straight, and my ace-4 might be good. So I elect to re-raise to $1,000. This is so I can isolate my opponent. I can pick up the dead money on the side pot of the $80, plus I can pick up the dead money in the middle. Hopefully, worst case scenario, we're flipping. My opponent turns over ace, deuce, 9, 10. He actually has the nut. And I said, well, I guess I need a heart then. And lo and behold, won't you know, we get bailed out with the 9 of hearts right away. And now I'm like, put a deuce out there. But we end up chopping this one. Here's a hand in Big O that is not very playable. 7, 7, 8, 9 queen with the suited queen of hearts.
But it is the meetup game. I'm going to play a huge range of hands, so it is something that I'm going to limp with. We do have a straddle in play for $10. I'm going to go ahead and limp, and anytime we're this deep, as you can see, the gentleman across the table from me, I believe his name is Clint. He's a really good Big O player. Anytime we're deep like this, I don't mind calling a flop for $10. So when the flop comes out, 6-9 queen with 2 hearts, this is about the best case scenario flop we could ask for. I mean, we flop top 2 pair, we flop an open-ended straight draw, we do have queen high hearts. If somebody else is drawing to the nut hearts, we're blocking them. So I elect to bet full-size pot here. We are going to get called by a wide variety of hands. We're going to get called by heart draws, straight draws like 7-9, 10-jack, even though we are blocking some of those hands. So anybody who's going to continue, we have to presume that they are on some kind of draw. And middling cards in Big O are pretty rare when they come up and flop. So if you have middling cards and you smash the flop, basically like we did right here, I think it's imperative that you attempt to try to charge maximum pressure on your opponents. So the pot was $50. I bet 50. First guy goes in the tank. He ends up folding. Clint across the table ends up calling, and the button ends up calling. Now, what happens on the turn is the turn is going to put out the deuce of spades. Now, here's a high variance play when you're looking at a hand like this. You know that it's a very wet board. All the low draws are out there, ace 3, 4, 5, 7. We do have a low draw with 7, 8 in the event that an ace comes off and we get somehow counterfeited on a 2 pair, like if somebody has aces and deuces. So that is kind of a little bit of a backup plan, but when it's 3-way action and it's a super draw heavy board, I want to eliminate one of the players, because if I get down to showdown and the ideal card does not come out, like a 5 of clubs or a 9 or a queen, or maybe like the ace of hearts, I'm going to be put in a precarious position. So I elect to go ahead and bet $200, full pot size bet. Applying maximum pressure here. So I want to talk about this bet here just for a minute. The reason why you want to bet on a super wet board like this, and I know I'm going to get some hate for this, and that's perfectly fine, is because you want to charge your opponents maximum draws, and you don't want to go to the river 3 ways, okay? So you got to factor you have 5 cards, your opponent has 5 cards, the other opponent has 5 cards. So there's 10 random cards out there where if you eliminate half of those cards, you're more likely to either win half the pot or scoop the whole pot. There is no low out there quite yet, so even a 6 might be decent for us, or maybe a deuce. A deuce is like one of the worst cards to pair, though, because anybody with ace-deuce catches up. So I like to do a full $200 pot size bet. The entire intention here is not necessarily to like build a pot, but it's to get it to be heads up. So the first opponent decides on a call. The second opponent, who's on the button, ends up folding. So spending the $200 to get an opponent was a very wise investment. The river comes out a 3 of diamonds. This is a card that I don't like, but I don't hate. It's not a heart. It's not a spade. I end up checking it over to Clint. Clint goes in the tank for a little bit. My entire intentions here is if Clint bets, I'm just going to call, even if he bets $600. If he's got 4 or 5, he's going to win a big pot off of me. If he's got anything else, like even ace 4, ace 5, he might do a full pot size bet. But he elects to check, and when he checks, I'm pretty sure I'm good. I turn over top 2 pair, 7-8 for a low. He's going to look at his hand. He's questioning how he missed. He probably had something like 10-jack, maybe with like 10-jack, ace-high heart, something to that effect. Obviously, he had a pretty big draw, and he ends up mucking it, and we scoop this one.
All right, we're going to talk about this hand just for a minute. We have 3, 4, 5, 10 queen, double suited. We have 10 high hearts and 5 high diamonds. I'm on the straddle, and there is a raise up to $20. Somebody who just mini juiced it. The small blind and big blind end up calling, and then I end up 3-betting to $60. Now behind me, we have middle position that ends up calling. The original raiser who made it 20 ends up calling, and then the small blind and the big blind end up calling as well. So we're going 5 ways to a flop with $300 in the pot. Now I want to take a minute or two to talk about one of the most common leaks Big O players have. And I'm not saying that anybody at this table particularly has this leak, because I don't know what my opponent's cards are. But one of the most common mistakes Big O players have is they play way too tight,
way too conservative. Professor, what do you mean they play way too tight or way too conservative? For example, one of those hands that you should be trying to get it all in with, a 3-3 hand, 3 to a Broadway and 3 to a wheel, anytime you are faced with a 3-bet, those are hands that have such high premium value that you should be pretty much 4-betting any opponent at any time with any of those hands pre-flop. Now, why should you be 4-betting with those hands, Professor? Because you're squeezing out all of the dead money on the side. So anybody who's calling the 3-bet in between. Now, there are times, obviously, when it makes sense just to flat. But for the most part, if you do have a 3-3 hand, you need to be okay or comfortable with getting every single chip in front of you in the middle of the pot and letting the card gods decide who's going to win. Now, one of the things that I will do, particularly when I recognize that there are other Big O players that are pretty decent at the table, is I will purposefully pick a hand and 3-bet them if it's a decent hand. Not necessarily a 3-3 hand, but for example, a hand like this, a 3-2 hand where I have 3 to a wheel and 2 to a Broadway. Now, why might I do that, you ask? I do that because I want to find out if the player has the same type of principles that I apply, that they're willing to get all their chips in the middle of the pot if they have a premium hand. So when I see a very conservative or a decent Big O player who hasn't been raising all night, all of a sudden raise, every once in a while, depending on what our stack sizes are, depending on the flow of the game, I might just min-click it back or just 3-bet back a little bit just to sweeten the pot, just to see how aggressive they're going to play with their hand. Because I also know if they have a hand like ace-ace-deuce, they might end up flatting as well. And I will use that information to my advantage. So let's see a flop. Oh my, the flop comes queen 5-6. This is literally a gin flop for me. We have 2 pair, we have an open-ended straight draw, we have a 10-high flush draw, and we have a 34 low draw. So I do a full pot size bet, $300, pow, let's get it in here. This is a hand, since I'm short stacked, I only have 500 effective, that I am more than happy to get it all in with. I mean, 2 pair, straight draw, flush draw. Like if I can't get it in with this hand, then I really should not be playing Big O at all. The first opponent counts out 300, slides it right in the middle. That's music to my ears. I want everybody to call. Now, the original raiser decides to jam all in. When he jams all in, I have to assume he has something like ace-deuce with hearts. He probably has a nut-nut draw. But at this point, it's only $200 more, and I think queen 5 is probably leading here. So I go ahead and call. The individual behind me decides to rip it all in. We're going to go 3 ways to a run out. Let's hope we get a clean run out here as the dealer decides to fix the pot. So, dealer's going to put out the 500 from everybody, as you can see right here. At this point in time, I love my action. I mean, 3-way action. Here we have an $1,800 pot is on the main. There is a little bit of a side pot between the other 2 players. But this is what I'm talking about. This is a situation where if the hand was good enough to go all in after the flop, the individual across from me probably should have 4-bet. So let's see what the turn is. Oh my God, the turn is a queen. I have second nuts, and the river is a deuce. Oh my goodness. So I turn over, I've got queens full, and I have a 34 low. What a clean run out. And the other individual turns over a queen, so he has 3 queens. He's going to win the side. And my guess is the original raiser might have had ace-deuce with hearts. Now, this is a situation where you can say, you know, Monday morning quarterback is always easy, Professor. But even if the individual across the table did 4-bet, he would have saved about $200, $220 on the side pot from this other individual losing. And you can make the argument that he wants that action because the other player might have just had a low with just a random queen or something to that effect. And that's a pretty legit argument. I'm not going to argue about that. But if it's worth getting it all in after the flop, it was probably worth getting it all in pre-flop. So this is a situation which passivity might end up costing you a little bit in Big O. And trust me, this is a situation where I've learned this lesson the hard way. Now I just rip it all in if I've got a 3-3 hand pre-flop. So this particular hand I'm going to call, I should go with my instinct. We look down at ace, deuce, 5, 9, jack. We have ace high hearts, 9 high spades. So this is a pretty decent hand as we have 3 to a wheel and 2 to Broadway. We raise it to 20 and we get a total of 6-way action. Now the flop comes out really nice for us. 6 of spades, 8 of spades, queen of hearts. So we have backdoor hearts, we have a 9 high spade draw, and then we have the nut low draw. Now Sammy, as you can see right there, ends out betting out ahead of time. She bets out $25. Sammy is another professional poker player. She specializes in Big O. She bets out $20 kind of as like a blocker bet.
I decide I just have so much equity in this hand. I mean, any 7 is going to give me the second nuts as well as the nut low. Any 10 is going to give me the nut high. Any spade probably catches me up, and then any low card, of course, is going to give me a low. So I elect to raise it to $100. Sammy ends up calling, and then we end up getting 2 other players who are going in the tank that initially called the $20 bet, and they're debating on it. One of them is going to end up calling here. Now, the reason why I'm pointing out this video is because even if you are a professional poker player and you run up against other professional poker players, you should still trust your instinct, trust your gut, and I'll get into that in just a little bit as the hand progresses. But we end up having 1 folder, 1 caller. We're going 3 ways to the turn. Now, the turn happens to be the 9 of diamonds, not exactly my gin card. It does give me a pair of 9s. Sammy checks. Player behind her decides to check. I go ahead and look at my cards again, thinking, well, maybe if it was the 9 of hearts. So I go ahead and check. Sammy says, what the heck just happened? Now, the river comes the ace of clubs. It's actually not a bad card, but it's not a great card. It does give us top 2 pair, and it does give us a 25 low. Sammy leads out and bets $80. Now, clearly, I see this as a blocker bet. What was worth her betting 25 on the flop that she's going to call a $100 raise and then lead out and basically bet like a fifth of the pot size for $80? The other individual in between us folds. I actually go in the tank for a little bit, and I tell Sammy I'm half tempted to pot it, and I'm half tempted to flat the 80. My instinct said, go ahead and pot it. This is a situation where if your instinct says pot it, you should. The reason why is because I'm blocking all the straights with a 5 and a jack. So 10 jack I'm blocking 5-7. I'm not blocking 7-10, but I like to call. She tells me she has a set of 8s. I turn over deuce 5 for a low. So I took the more conservative route. But this is to show you that when your instincts say pot, if I pot here, I might pick up the $250. That I ended up splitting with Sammy. There's no might about it. I definitely would have. So trust your instincts. So let's take a look at a hand where I'm just going to have pure aggression. Ace 5, 6, 8, 9 with 1 suit, suited ace high hearts. I like to make it $30 pre-flop. I don't like most of my cards, all the middling cards, the 6, 8, 9. I do love the ace 5. But since I do have 2 to a wheel and the nut heart, and we're pretty deep stacked, I like to build a pot, so I elect to go ahead and raise it to $30. Now we end up getting 3 ways to the flop. Flop is going to come out pretty decent for us. It comes out 10 of hearts, jack of hearts, and the 3 of clubs. So we end up having an open-ended straight draw, plus we have the nut flush draw. I do about a 2/3 pot size bet. I bet $65. I'm expecting, if any of my opponents have a set here, I'm probably going to hear from them. Otherwise, if they have draws, they're going to call. Both players elect to draw, and we go to a turn. Now, the turn comes out the 5 of spades. Now, this is a situation which you can either apply max pressure or you can slow down. This is my meetup game. It's a juicy game. I am going to apply max pressure. I go ahead and bet 300. I do this for a couple different reasons. First of all, if anybody's got a set of jacks or a set of 10s, I probably would have heard from them on the flop. Secondly, even if they do raise, I still have an open-ended straight draw. I still have nut flush. I actually have ace 6 for a low, which is something I am considering might be good in this situation since no one else raised. So it's unlikely somebody has ace deuce or ace 4 or even deuce 4. So I don't mind firing out $300 here because I have so much equity. I end up getting 1 caller. Then the other player's going in the tank a little bit. He decides on calling. So now we're going to go 3 ways to the river in this $1,200 bloated up pot. Let's see if we can get a little bit of help on the river. Ooh, the river comes a 6 of hearts. Jen, now I have the nut high. I do have ace 8 for a low. I elect to bet full pot size bet, $1,200. Now the individual behind me, he decides, he thinks for about a half a second, then he elects on a call. I turn over the ace high hearts. He has king high hearts, and he tables his hand, and he's like, oh my God, I have king high hearts. Now, when he tables his hand, thank goodness he did, I point out to him, sir, you have a 47 low. So he does end up having a 7 low, which beats my 8 low. So we end up chopping the pot. But this just shows you if you're really aggressive throughout the whole night that you can get somebody to call off with second nut for a $1,000 bet on the river. So play smart, everybody. Run like a god.